guys, this is Chelsea jumping in to preempt myself and to remind you guys that if you have not already, do not forget your tickets to our amazing upcoming spring events. We have a spring refresh in April where we're refreshing and rebooting every element of our lifestyles with a ton of experts. We're doing an all-day conference for Career Day in May that is all about anywhere you're at professionally, making sure you can get to where you want to go. We're also doing several big upcoming classes on things like investing, branding, budgeting, everything you'll want to learn about. And do not forget that, as always, if you join our membership program, the Society at TFD, you get 50% off of every single event, workshop, class, conference, everything we do forever. See you there. Hey guys, it's Chelsea from The Financial Diet, and I am very, very excited to host this very special episode of TFD that's really just about having some fun, guys. As many of you know, I'm a bilingual person. I have spoken French for many, many years of my life, lived in France. My husband is French, all that stuff. And France, French culture, the Francophone world. My family members who are Francophone are actually from Quebec. They're not French. So, all kinds of, the Francophone world is a very big part of my life, a very big part of who I am. A lot of the videos that I film, I'm filming while I'm in France. And I, like many Americans, have taken a fair amount of Spanish throughout my life. I have traveled to many Spanish-speaking countries. Actually, not that many, but I've traveled to Spanish-speaking countries. I live in New York City, and every day I'm, around all kinds of Spanish speakers. But I never really took the deep dive into truly committing myself to learn Spanish and holding myself accountable to it until this year. I really wanted to use, especially this last leg of the pandemic, to do some really productive stuff. So that project for me has been becoming fluent in Spanish. I do several lessons a week via Zoom with a tutor, and I would like to spend a month this year, vaccine pending, in a Spanish-speaking country, depending on where my husband can be. That might be Spain, maybe that will be Central or South America. It kind of just depends on how the year unfolds. The road to accountability on language learning is long and windy and nuanced, and I wanted to add a lot of accountability to myself with Spanish by doing some content here and there in Spanish. This will be my first foray into video content in Spanish, and it's going to be painful, so everyone really bear with me. I'm still, I would say, beginner, maybe early intermediate part of the journey. I mean, you guys will tell me, but it's something that I really want to commit myself to doing, especially with Spanish, because I would really like to be able for TFD to branch into more and more Spanish first content, and me understanding that as the owner of the company the CEO, a very important thing. And when it comes to French, that is obviously just such a huge part of my life. I know I have a lot of my little Francophone buddies there in the comment section, and I never give you guys enough love or talk to you guys that much. So I just thought it would be really fun to do a trilingual Q&A. So some of these questions will be in English, some in French, some in Spanish. And again, no judgment in the comment section about my Spanish. This is a safe space. We're supportive here. We lift each other up. We don't make fun of each other. So I'm going to make tons of mistakes, but we're just gonna do it. And hopefully first of much of this type of content in terms of multilingual. So to start things off with an easy English question, we have Erin who asks, owning a company through a global pandemic must have some takeaways. Is there anything that you would say to you 2 years ago to prep you for the next disaster? It's interesting. I was actually in a meeting earlier this morning with one of our newest hire at TFD, our newest employee. She's our financial manager. And we were talking all about savings, because like a business has savings and needs an emergency fund and needs cash to buffer, anything that could happen. And, a business is, not unlike a person who works freelance, where you don't always know exactly when you'll get paid. And there's often a lot of delays between when you're getting your invoices filled and when you need to fill your invoices. So cash flow management is extremely important to any business. But we were talking about what kind of are the philosophical guidelines of our saving strategy, because when it comes to how much you really need for savings and how that, needs to be prioritized amongst other goals, because you also want to be reinvesting your money. You don't just want it sitting there. She was asking specifically about, to what extent do we want to be saving kind of in the instance of another pandemic, because the pandemic did slow our growth substantially, but it didn't stop it. We still grew last year. And obviously the PPP loans, we've gotten both, and they've really helped a lot. But my answer was really that you can't really plan for what that crisis will be like, and really kind of nor should you. What the COVID crisis represented for small businesses like ours, and it totally varies industry to industry, like our business as a digital first platform was much better equipped to pivot than, let's say, a bowling alley or a restaurant or all these different in-person experiential events, concerts, etc. So we could have never accounted for all of the various nuances in that situation. And it's likely that we won't be able to account for whatever the next one would be. And the ways in which it would impact our business are not going to be clear to us now. So we can't really operate and invest the way we need to be investing and spending the way we need to be spending to grow if we're preparing ourselves for a catastrophic event. I think my reframing from COVID was pre-COVID, my greatest fear, my absolute greatest fear was that TFD would have to close. And I can honestly say now that given what happened with COVID and how many businesses which were doing amazingly and did everything right had to close as a result, I now feel an extreme sense of peace that one day some kind of crisis could hit that forces us to close. And you can't live your whole life as a business owner with that worst case scenario in mind. And I think what I've realized I'm comfortable with is a middle of the road saving strategy that does give us enough of a buffer that we're not at the whim of cash flow and when our invoices are filled, but we're also not just hoarding our money in the event of an emergency, because we have to be reinvesting. We have to, it's such a cliche, but it's true. You have to spend money to make money. So I think that fear of, we've seen the void business-wise, small business-wise especially. We have seen that void in COVID, and we don't know when the next void will be, and we don't know how it will affect us. But I no longer have such an extreme fear about TFD having to say goodbye, because that might happen, and it's just the name of the game. J'ai quelqu'un qui me demande recommanderais-tu vivre à Paris? Combien coûte la vie là-bas? C'est intéressant parce que j'ai la moitié des gens qui me vous voient et l'autre moitié qui me tutoient. Je suis ton ami. Mais ça dépend complètement. Comme beaucoup de grandes villes, c'est extrêmement cher. Il n'y a pas de secret. Et pour moi, il y a quand même des critères de grandes villes, de villes vraiment métropolitaines, cosmopolites, etc., qui me sont très importants, que je trouve pas forcément à Paris. Notamment, c'est quand même une culture très très homogène. Ça commence à changer un petit peu. Tu as plus de restos et d'activités culturelles, trucs comme ça, qui sont d'autres pays, d'autres cultures. Ça commence à se diversifier un peu. Mais l'image mondiale de Paris, sur lequel le tourisme reste, et dépend en général, ça reste une image extrêmement homogène de Paris, Tour Eiffel, Paris, bistrot, Paris, je sais pas, macarons et petits chiens et des trucs comme ça. C'est un cliché qui vient des années 50, limite, qui est vraiment plus du tout le Paris d'aujourd'hui. Et ça me frustre un peu parce que Paris, c'est quand même une ville extrêmement diverse, avec énormément de gens, de culture, de langues, et des trucs comme ça. Et c'est un peu dommage de vendre toujours cette image extrêmement homogène de Paris. Et ça, pour moi, c'est un peu dommage quand on y vit aussi. C'est aussi très lent par rapport au changement de façon de vivre, en termes de start-up, d'entreprise, de trucs comme ça. Quand tu compares ça à une ville comme New York ou des villes en Asie ou d'autres villes comme ça, c'est pas du tout le même niveau de flexibilité, de évolution. Mais le niveau de vie, la qualité de vie est vraiment super. comme partout en France quasiment. C'est un pays qui prend quand même soin des gens. Et donc je pense que la vie à Paris, c'est une vie de ville très différente que la vie que par exemple on a à New York, où c'est beaucoup plus c'est mondial, c'est vraiment mélange de cultures, la vie est rapide, c'est génial pour monter une boîte, pour faire des trucs en grand, ce qui est clairement l'époque de ma vie dans laquelle je suis actuellement. Mais tout ça pour dire que c'est pas exactement la ville que moi je chercherais dans cette partie de ma vie. Mais ça pourrait être intéressant si ce que tu recherches, c'est la vie de grande ville un peu plus lente, un peu plus stable, avec une grande qualité de vie. Donc c'est juste deux choses différentes et c'est pas ce que je recherche actuellement, mais j'adore y passer beaucoup de temps. Et j'adore, j'ai plein d'amis là-bas, j'ai de la famille là-bas, donc franchement, j'ai rien à dire contre. Mais c'est une ville différente, quoi, qui reste vraiment dans cette image et qui en souffre un peu à cause de ça. Et oui, la vie coûte cher, hein, comme dans toutes les grandes villes. Hein. La vie coûte cher, il n'y a pas de secret. Mais la vie chère là-bas, t'achètes plus en termes de qualité de vie qu'ici à New York, par exemple. Question simple avec une réponse compliquée. Désolée. So another young lady on Instagram is asking me, ¿cómo piensas incorporar tu trilingualismo, palabra complicada, en TFD? ¿O no piensas hacerlo? Sí, tengo la intención de hacer al menos un poco de contenido puramente español, hispanohablante, no sé, en español en todo caso. Este año, si posible, obviamente de una persona latina, una mujer latina, y no de mí, porque no tengo actualmente el nivel para hacerlo y también porque creo que la cosa más importante en el discurso general sobre el dinero es realmente de hablar con las personas de clase trabajadores o trabajando, no sé, comunidades de inmigrantes y la gente que no tiene no sé, la educación tradicional de dinero desde sus infancias y también las personas que deben aprender a sus padres a manejar el dinero. Estas situaciones para mí son extremadamente importantes para el discurso en general. Y esto me ayuda a formular, no sé si es una palabra, formular mis ideas sobre el dinero y a buscar la dirección editorial de TFD desde que nosotros hacemos en general. Todo eso para decir que voy a intentar, a menos de hacer un poco de contenido en español, pero de la parte de una latina y de su experiencia y de su historia. Una última cosa a decir sobre esta pregunta. No creo que hijos de inmigrantes o inmigrantes en general, latino u otra, son todos de clase trabajadores. Hay de todo en esta comunidad, pero esta comunidad es a menudo olvide para el discurso tradicional sobre el dinero y en una gran parte son víctimas de discriminación, de desigualdad no sé cómo se dice, salary, compensation, etc. Entonces, los problemas y las dificultades son a menudo los mismos. So another English question we have, what did you underestimate early in your career that actually proved to be valuable? I think the number one thing is just being reliable, and I used to think that it was like 80% talent, 20% reliability that got you places. It's the opposite. It's 80% reliability, 20% talent. And we work in a field with a lot of creative professionals, many of whom are more talented than you could possibly believe, but every single day I will take a moderately talented but reliable person. Is there a different path you would have taken in life, or is there a new path that you wish to pursue in the future? I think it's probably pretty unhealthy to think in terms of wishing you had taken a different path in life because that ship sailed, honey. But definitely other paths I would like to pursue in the future. There's many other things I would like to do with the rest of my life. And since I don't plan on having kids, it's all options for me, baby. But yeah, definitely, I mean, part of the reason I want to learn Spanish is because a lot of the things that I would like to do in the future, whether that's, involving myself more in politics or in, working with children in different capacities, especially in cities like New York, being bilingual in Spanish opens tons of those doors. Also travel, like most of us godless millennials, I love to travel. And, obviously so many countries are Spanish speaking. Ooh, this is a really good and important question. Now that you're successful and don't have the same money stresses that you had when you were younger, how do you keep in touch with the situation and the mindset of your viewers who might be struggling? Well, I can't relate, right, anymore. I am not financially struggling. Like, my husband and I have been living in 2 different countries and paying 2 rents for an entire year, and will probably continue to do so for at least the foreseeable future. And the fact that we are not planning to have children is also just like financially, obviously that relieves so much stress. But we both earn good livings and have total financial stability, so I can't relate. So the truth is that I view my roles twofold. One is to make my content on TFD more and more educational in terms of explaining concepts, in terms of sharing information, in terms of doing deep dives on subjects that I think are important to changing the overall money discourse and hopefully maybe even one day policy, but then also lifting up other voices. I'm still the majority sort of voice share on our YouTube channel, but hopefully that will be changing as we add more shows to the channel. And also on all of our other platforms, I'm very much not the majority of our content. We're all about other people, other voices, other stories, because ultimately I don't really think the problem is that I'm not struggling financially, because ultimately if anyone is successfully creating content that's reaching people, they're probably not going to be struggling financially for a long time. I think the problem is that any one perspective is much too limited. And that's also part of the reason why it's very important for me to expand our content, even in terms of language and culture, because I think we need to be telling more stories, reaching more people, and really opening up the financial conversation. We have a French question. Avez-vous des conseils sur la façon d'estimer le montant dont j'aurai besoin pour ma retraite? Déjà, ça m'aiderait vachement de savoir si tu es en France, en Belgique, je sais pas où, mais si tu es aux États-Unis, c'est vraiment, il faut vraiment partir du principe que tu vas quasiment tout faire toi-même. On a très peu de pensions, on a très peu de retraites subventionnées par l'État. On a quelques trucs, mais c'est en général pas suffisant, loin de suffisant, on va dire. Pour calculer, il y a plein de outils sur Internet pour le faire, où tu peux juste taper tes détails perso, quelques chiffres, et ça va te dire à peu près ce qu'il te faut. Et encore une fois, ça dépend vachement où tu es en termes de gouvernement et de subventionnement par l'État. Parce que clairement mes amis en France, même s'ils doivent quand même économiser beaucoup et vraiment faire attention, surtout s'ils veulent une retraite plutôt aisée, c'est pas du tout la même chose en termes de mesures qu'on doit prendre soi-même. Mais si disons t'es aux États-Unis, je sais pas pourquoi si t'es française, mais disons que t'es aux États-Unis et tu vas bâtir ta retraite ici, c'est vraiment, déjà tu peux utiliser ces outils, mais tu peux aussi, je pense, te poser quelques questions qui sont beaucoup plus qualitatives et non juste sur les chiffres basiques. Parce qu'on peut te dire combien d'argent il faut pour avoir, je sais pas, une retraite de base ou un montant spécifique, mais on peut pas te dire quel genre de retraite tu vas avoir. Et les gens pensent souvent, parce que les chiffres total d'une retraite, ça peut pas être beaucoup. On peut parler de centaines de milliers, on peut parler même de millions en termes de retraite. Mais si on veut une retraite qui dure, je sais pas, 25 ans, 30 ans, et on veut vraiment profiter de ces années, on veut voyager, on veut s'acheter des choses et ne pas trop se poser la question sur ses choix financiers, là tout de suite, on parle déjà d'un montant assez différent, mais aussi quand on regarde ces chiffres généralisés, quand on les divise par les années dont on parle et on regarde sur comment chaque année va se dérouler financièrement, on voit rapidement que c'est pas autant qu'on pense et qu'il faut avoir beaucoup plus qu'on le pense, parce que la pire chose au monde, c'est vraiment de se retrouver très très âgé et quand même avoir besoin de travailler et ne pas avoir assez pour vivre. Donc il faut déjà se poser ces questions qualitatives et puis aller voir avec ces outils, et puis à partir de là, vraiment faire la stratégie annuelle pour économiser cet argent, parce que ça aussi, ça prend du temps. Et c'est pour ça que le marché est si efficace. What is your opinion on using astrological signs to label people in the workplace? Seems like an HR violation, maybe bordering on illegal. Really not sure about any of that, but I have the same opinion about astrology that I do about religion, which is that I think for many people it can be an incredibly useful tool for organizing and understanding the world around us, for figuring out our place within that world, for navigating difficult situations and relationships. I have a good friend who's very, very into astrology, who kind of refers to it as a language for understanding all kinds of phenomena and situations that otherwise are very kind of hard to parse. And she's very smart and I have a ton of respect for her. And I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with embracing astrology in that way. Similarly, I don't think there's anything wrong with embracing any organized religion in that way to help add structure and meaning and kind of understandability to the world around us, to simplify it to an extent. I don't think any of that is bad, but I do think that anytime those parameters that you're using, whether it be for something like astrology or for something like religion, are now being projected onto others, when it's being used to make assumptions about others, when it's being used to evaluate or regulate or judge or label the other people who did not ascribe to that, who did not sign up for it, I think that gets very problematic ethically. I think there's a reason that we can't and shouldn't use religion in the workplace. And similarly, I think astrology has no place in it. And I know that there are many companies that don't abide by that. And I'm actually not totally sure about all of the nuances, the laws about how you're allowed to integrate your religious faith, for example, into how you operate as a business. But I do think ethically it's just very compromised, because you can't impose that on someone else, and you really shouldn't. But I definitely, I'm value neutral on astrology, so don't come for me, either side of that issue. I can't take it. Okay, I'm going back to French. C'est pas réellement une question que j'ai reçue, mais j'ai des gens qui me demandent, parce que pour ceux qui n'ont pas vu, j'ai l'intention de faire cette année une vidéo purement en français qui vise les Françaises, sur les Américaines, les Françaises, un peu ce que les Françaises peuvent apprendre, les Parisiennes même peuvent apprendre des Américaines, un peu pour me moquer des articles, des livres et tout ça qui nous harcèlent depuis des années avec les astuces pour vivre comme une Française, pour ne pas grossir, pour ne pas être vous, les Américaines dégueulasses, et plus comme les Françaises. Donc j'ai l'intention de faire un peu l'inverse, mais j'essaie de le faire avec délicatesse, avec amour, humour et tout ça, et surtout vraiment bien le rechercher. Je vais bosser, je pense, un petit peu avec quelques copines françaises, parisiennes même, pour bien formuler mes idées. Merde, tu vois, j'arrive pas, je commence à mélanger les langues, mais Non, je vais commencer à travailler avec eux sur le script et je vais prendre mon temps avec, mais normalement ça va sortir cet été. Je vais vraiment me forcer à sortir ça cet été et ça va être cool et je pense que je vais être inondée de commentaires vraiment horribles. Parce que les Français, quand tu te moques même très très gentiment d'eux sur Internet, en tant qu'Américaine surtout, oula, c'est moche, hein? C'est moche. So, the last question, I'll go back to Spanish to answer, is ¿cuáles son sus metas financieras para 2021? No sé cómo se dice eso. Sí, mis metas. No tengo muchas metas, porque este año es sí complicado sobre el dinero y no, como todo el mundo, no tengo muchas ocasiones de gastar y de comprar cosas que normalmente yo adoro comprar. Y aún mis viajes para pasar un poco de tiempo con mi esposo en Francia son totalmente diferentes. Todo es I forgot the word, but closed. Todo es closed. Restaurantes, tiendas, etc. Entonces, aún en vacaciones, no es realmente vacaciones, pero cuando estoy en Francia, no puedo gastar. Y normalmente, más tarde en este año, voy a poder gastar un poco más y hacer cosas que no puedo hacer desde hace un año. Y entonces para mí la más importante es realmente de conocer la diferencia entre cosas que me gustan realmente, que valen, complicado, que valen el dinero, y cosas que yo hago porque es posible de hacer eso. Y es una pregunta difícil, pero voy a intentar de saber esta diferencia este año con lo que yo compro. Bueno, dolore. That was painful. No, but you know what? This is going to be good, guys, because here's what I want to leave you with this Q&A. Nothing in this world, and I say this with true, I weigh my words here. Nothing in this world that you will do will change your life more once you've achieved basic financial stability, because obviously if you don't have that, life is impossibly difficult. But I'll hedge my bets here and say few things in this life that you'll ever do will change your life more than learning another language in every possible way. And the number one step to learning a language is to not be afraid of looking like a fool. I made 1,000 mistakes with my Spanish answers. I couldn't find certain words. It was painful. I guarantee you that I'm gonna watch this video in a year and maybe quietly set it to private because I'm so embarrassed by how bad it was. No, I won't do that. But it would be really embarrassing. But I don't care because I want to actually get better, and that's how you get better. And if you are trying and you are being genuine in your attempt, people will be helpful and nice to you, except asshole Parisians. They'll just be dicks about it, but just don't learn French. Anyway, I'm kidding. Oh my God, I'm gonna get screamed at. Anyway, all of that is to say, I could not recommend you guys more to I think that's fucking Duolingo. That fucking owl. Anyway, I could not recommend to you guys more to learn another language, to give it a try, to not be afraid of looking silly. I hope that this year we'll be able to do more content purely about financial education in Spanish. And I really hope that my video that is going to break the French internet about what Parisian women can learn from American women will hopefully be coming out sooner rather than later. But I'm taking my sweet, sweet time with it because I got to do it perfectly. All of it to say thank you for sending your questions, and I will see you guys back here next week. Do not forget to click that join button and join our secret society. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button and to come back every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for new and awesome videos. Goodbye.